The message to the have-nots for change. Change is movement in Alinsky's world. Movement means friction between the classes. Are you seeing some friction between the classes? He says that man's welfare is connected to each other and cannot be separated. He calls that collective salvation. Has anybody heard that term already? I've heard the president use it. Collective salvation, if you watch Glenn Beck this week, he does a great job of this stuff. If I just watched him, I wouldn't have to read so much. Collective salvation comes from black liberation theology, which believes completely that salvation only comes through redistribution of the white man's wealth to the black man. That's collective salvation. This is also believed by Alinsky, and this is where it gets tied in. Therefore, Alinsky believes, and all progressives that I know believe, that all private property is immoral and stupid. Pursuing morality is futile, and the pursuit of day-to-day existence is a must. Hand-to-mouth existence is what they believe in. There is no belief in your brother's keeper, only a belief in the government-controlled collective for proper leveling. Is everybody familiar with the term leveling? Leveling was used, it's an old term, it was used by our founding fathers, which means redistribution of wealth. Redistribution, according to Alinsky, is the only moral life, and the only life for civilization to continue. Of means and ends. Alinsky on means and ends. What means do you use to get the end? Alinsky says, does this particular end justify any particular mean? This is what he believes. Ethics, according to Alinsky, vary with one's personal interest in an issue. One's political position determines ethics. For example, he uses, think about it this way, what was the Nazis' attitude towards the resistance? The British towards the colonists? Robert towards business? I threw in there Acorn versus the establishment. Ethics held in context with the times. For example, he gives an example in the book of the Boston Massacre, and how a gentleman named Patrick Carr found it to be an incredible event, but Sam Adams blasted him for saying such a thing. So he said it just depends on the standard that you're wishing to apply. Ethical standards, according to Alinsky, must be elastic and stretch with the times. And I put in here, just like the progressives treat the Constitution, right? It's nice and elastic. Concern with ethics increase with means. If it's a utilitarian mean, only ethics concerns is will it work. If you only have one choice, you only care about will it work. If you only have one choice, he says ethics should never arise. The means be coming down by a mortal spirit, he says. To me, ethics is doing what is best for the most, regardless of whether it's right or not. The best for the most. The less important the end to be desired, he says, the more one can afford to engage in ethical evaluation of means. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Success or failure is a mighty determinant of ethics. Alinsky on there was no such thing as a successful trader. He says, well, a successful trader becomes a founding father. And that kind of a shocking statement, that he would consider our own founding fathers to be traders. The morality of the means is determined by the outcome. For example, he gives U.S. versus Hiroshima. Effective means is judged immoral by the opposition. So he gives an example in here of Francis Marion, smallpox. Are any of you familiar with Francis Marion? Okay. He was kind of a guerrilla tactics, revolutionary war guy, and he fought the British down in the swamps of South Carolina, I believe, and he was very effective. But he said that Cornwallis said that Marion was not a gentleman and not a Christian, but we see him as a hero. So he tries to use this to justify his social overthrow. He says, do what you can with what you have, and then clothe it with moral garments. For example, and I thought this was very interesting, the example he used here. He used a quote from Lenin when he returned from exile. Lenin said, they have the guns, and therefore we are for peace and reformation through the ballot. He says, when we have the guns, then it will be through the bullet. And so it was. Very interesting how he put that. Moving on, the education of the organizer. This is a very important section, and the reason that it is because this is exactly what your commander-in-chief was trained on. He was trained in this tactics by Jerry Kellman. So you remember Alinsky's social training school I told you about for social justice? This is what he looked for. Community organizers who blend into their community to learn the values, the legends, the idioms. Reverend Wright's church for 20 years? Makes sense. Gain experience in identifying with the community. Be curious about community and community affairs that know no limit. Be irreverent. Stir up upset in the community. Nothing is sacred. Imagination. He must have imagination that bases his tactics and actions in real action with the reaction of the opposition, such as he tries to drive the opposition, and this is something with the Tea Party that's been a little frustrating for me. They use tactics on us that make us be reactive. We have to stop that. And the more that we tell people, please do this, tell people that the Tea Party is not a third party, that the Tea Party only stands for 3 things, which we talked about already. Just tell them that. People tend to calm down. He says that the community organizer must have a sense of humor, that he must engage in satire. One thing I think is, I try to draw some of these into Barack Obama. He does laugh a lot, I'll give you that. He laughs a lot. To give a blurred vision of a better world to share. You're never going to get any definitives out of the community organizer. He's never going to tell you exactly what he's looking for. He's going to give you small pictures of the big picture. Must have an organized personality. He must be a political schizoid, or be politically polarizing as to not slip into becoming a true believer. So you have to understand that when they stand in front of you and they tell you they believe in X and they're going to stand behind X, that's not what they believe. That's not what they believe at all. They're just telling you that to gain power. They have to have a strong ego. They have to have an open and flexible mind, be a political relative, a flexible personality. All values in the perfect community organizer are flexible. They're relative to the political world. The organizer is taught that all good ideas come from conflict. How about don't let a good crisis go to waste? Sound familiar? They must be a strong communicator. And he said anyone that would be lacking a strong communication skill could not be an effective community organizer. He said that the community organizer's communication skill must be fixed on a person's main value or goal and hold to that course. Pound away at it. Keep the pressure on. Do not communicate with anyone purely on a rational fact or ethic or an issue. Stay vague, general, and phrase everything in vague. Because the idea is once you gain power, and we'll get to that slide in a minute, you can change everything once you're inside. The organizers to manipulate, suggest, persuade the community towards action. They believe completely in manipulation as being an honorable tactic. The organizer, I thought this was very interesting. The organizers are trained to never make a decision and to receive from any decision maker to be non-accountable. Sound familiar? Use direct counter questions like, what do you think? Makes sense, doesn't it? Always proceed on the basis of a question, never a stance. Issues must be communicated simply by grasping a battle cry. I can't help it, folks. I have to go there. Change, hope. Just a battle cry. Just words, right? Just words. Must have pointed adversaries. Now this I found rather interesting. Because in Alinsky's book he talks about pointed adversaries being like the slumlord, or the corporation, or that insurance claims adjuster. But take it one step further. Have we not seen this already? It's Wall Street. It's the healthcare industry. It's the oil company. It's the auto company. It's the banks. There's always a pointed adversary to get it across. Techniques for burrowing into a community. He calls it in the beginning. Techniques for an organizer to get into your community is to establish an identity in the community. Alinsky says it's a license to operate. It begins with the denunciation of an employer or a landlord or a policy or a merchant, or a government, or a president, whatever you want to make it. Give people an acceptable reason for being there. I have come to fundamentally change the United States of America. Good reason to be there. He must get inside of the community experience. Reverend Wright's church, ring a bell. He must get inside the community's experience. He must convince key community people of his or her sincerity and that their ideas are the best ideas to get that hope and change. Promise to secure a victory through these ideas. How many times have we heard the president say, failure is not an option? We've heard him say it tons. Failure is not an option. So you believe the victory is in sight. He believes in moving the bait. To be attacked by his enemy is something that they want. It's something they wish. It's something they desire. Because it makes them the dangerous enemy label, and it gives them credence and credibility to the opposition. It gives them a birthright amongst the people.